Sometimes the right choice is to develop your website locally, but at some point you're going to want to put your website online, or in certain cases, you may want to develop remotely so that multiple people on your team or your clients have access to the website as you're developing it. In order to do this, you will need to host your WordPress website on a live host. This means that you install and configure the WordPress software on a web hosting server. This will ensure that your WordPress website is accessible to the public on the internet, as opposed to setting it up locally on your own computer for testing purposes. Essentially, it's the process of launching your website online. Key points about setting up WordPress on a live host include the fact that you will need hosting and a domain. You will need to purchase a web hosting plan from a provider and register a domain name to link to your website. Once you've done this, the installation process consists of accessing your hosting via a control panel. This would typically be something like cPanel, depending on the company you're hosting with. You'll set up a MySQL database within your hosting account for WordPress that enables you to store content. You'll download the latest WordPress installation files and upload them to your hosting server using FTP. Then you'll access the WordPress installation script through your domain and follow the on-screen instructions to configure your site. A couple of other things to be aware of. It's important that you point your domain name to the hosting service. You'll also want to make sure that your website URLs are structured in the way that will work with WordPress. Once you've done this, you can log in and begin designing the site just as I've showed you previously. The hosting company that I recommend is HostGator. This is an excellent company. They've been around for a long time, and one of the best things about them, in my opinion, is they offer 24/7 support. So if you have questions, you can actually call this number and talk to a real person. They are very helpful and they have a lot of information available on their website. I'll provide a link in the description so that you can go right here and sign up. In addition to using them for hosting, you can also register domain names right from HostGator. So if you don't have a domain name yet, I would recommend that you obtain your domain name from them. It is possible that you can repoint a domain name that you've bought from another existing service and then link it to HostGator for hosting, but the process does take some additional steps because you will need to update the name servers and make sure that the DNS information is linked to your host. If you do this at the same location, the process will be a little more streamlined. Once you have your domain name, you'll also want to get some hosting. HostGator provides different hosting accounts, and they do have a discount when you first sign up that makes it very affordable. I would recommend that you just start with the hatchling plan. You don't need these bigger plans. This will easily be sufficient, and you can see that your domain is free for the first year. So there are some added benefits about signing up for this. Once you choose the plan, you'll go through the steps and sign up to make HostGator your hosting company. I'm going to assume that you already have your domain name and hosting and that you're using HostGator. Once you have signed up for hosting and you have your domain name, then you'll be able to log into the cPanel of your web hosting account. You can access this by going to the sign in button from the HostGator website, or you can simply type in your domain name /cPanel and you can enter from this website as well. I will go ahead and enter the necessary information and log into cPanel. cPanel is the location that allows you to manage your domain name. There's all sorts of different things that you can do here. You can manage your MySQL databases. You can access PHPMyAdmin. You can upload files from here if you don't want to use a dedicated FTP program. And you can do things like managing your email accounts and setting up other specifics about your domain. What I like to do when I'm developing a website using WordPress is I like to set up a subdomain. A subdomain is a prefix that you can add to your domain name so that you can create a separate section of the website. These are really useful to organize content or target specific audiences, but they're also great because you can actually have a private area in which to develop your website that is not readily available to the public. What that means is that someone would have to have the subdomain address in order to access your website. This makes it a perfect place to be developing with WordPress remotely because you still can have the WordPress website function in the exact same way in which you'll ultimately have it functioning, but it can exist under a private area. Most of the time when you're developing a website, you don't want it to be live and available to the public because it might not be ready for prime time. So this allows you to have a perfect private location to develop your website. In addition, you can also set up multiple subdomains. It's possible that you could be working on a website for someone else and just temporarily putting it under your subdomain while you're in the process of building it before you would transfer it over to their hosting company. Since this is the way that I like to work, I'm going to go ahead and set up a subdomain on my hosting account. In order to do this, in cPanel, you'll scroll down to the domains section and you're going to click on domains. Once you do this, you will be on the domain page, and this is where you can create a new subdomain. So I will click create a new domain. I'm going to give my domain name a name, and you can basically call it anything you want. So I'm going to call mine terradiem.green.blue.com. And then I will click submit. And now my subdomain has been created. So you can think of this as like a separate domain name. Obviously, the ending part of the domain name will always be tied to your main domain name, and you can add whatever you want at the beginning. I find this to be a great way to work on websites when I'm still in the development phase. Now that I have this set up, I want to go ahead and I want to install WordPress. So I'm going to go back to the tools section of cPanel. It is possible that you can manually set up WordPress, but HostGator does have something called WordPress Manager by Softaculous. And this is a super quick way that you can get WordPress up and running. So I'm going to use this method. I will click WordPress Manager. Once you get to this particular page, you'll be able to install WordPress. I'm going to go ahead and click install, and this will give you particulars about how you can install WordPress onto your domain. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the installation URL. So instead of being installed on my main domain name, I'm going to use this drop-down menu, and I am going to select the subdomain that we just created. You can choose the version of WordPress. I typically just use the most updated version. You may get a warning that says a trusted SSL certificate was not found. Because I just made the subdomain, it takes a little while for everything to populate. They say up to 24 hours, but honestly, it probably will happen within about 15 minutes, and this will go away. So for now, I'm just going to ignore this. It is possible to just click the quick install button, but I like to customize my install a little bit. What you can do initially is you can set your site settings. Instead of having your site obtain the default site name of my blog, you can change it to whatever you want. So I'm going to call this Terradiem. You can give it a description. You can control the username and the password. I recommend that you don't use the default username of admin because this makes it a little bit easier for your website to be hacked. So I would suggest changing this to something else. For my example, I'm just going to call this admin Emily. You can make this username anything you want. Obviously, you can change the password to be something that is custom. I will go ahead and add my own custom password. You can plug in your admin email. And then over here on the left is where you can manage your plugins. I generally turn all of these off. Even without having any of these selected, some plugins are going to be installed, but I'll show you how you can manage this. At this point, I think we are ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and choose install. It's going to go ahead and install WordPress. This may take a few minutes, so we'll just wait for this to be completed. And as you can see, the software was successfully installed. It gives me some quick links to the front end portion of my website, as well as the admin section of the website. I am going to go ahead and click Return to the WordPress Management. This will show you the newest install that you have that's up and running. If I go ahead and visit the front end portion of the website, you can see that a default theme has been installed along with some placeholder information that WordPress is going to provide. I did want to show you what gets installed by default, so I am going to log into the backend portion of my website. And if you look at the dashboard, you're going to see that there's some options in the sidebar that we never saw. If we go to plugins, there are several plugins that have been installed and activated. And if we go to appearance themes, you can see that there are a few themes that have also been installed. I prefer to completely handle all of these things myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just close this window. We're going to go back to our WordPress management area. Once you have installed WordPress, I suggest you go to where it says Manage Plugins. If you don't see this, you should see the list of any WordPress installations you have underneath this domain. And there is a little triangle that points down. If you click this, it's going to open up some more specifics about this particular install. This is the area where you can back up, uninstall, remove all of the necessary things that you might want to do to the database. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to where it says Manage Plugins. I'm going to click this, and this is going to show me all of the plugins that happen to be installed. So you can see these are the plugins that came pre-installed with WordPress. They are not activated. These are activated. So what I am going to do is I'm going to simply delete all of these plugins. So I will click the trash can to delete these. And if you try to delete a plugin that is active, you'll get an error message. So you will need to make the plugins inactive, and then you will be able to delete them. In addition to doing this, I'm going to go to Manage Themes, and I'm going to look under the Installed section. Currently, the active theme is 2025, but I really don't need any of these other themes, so I am just going to delete them as well. I will close this, and now if we log back into the backend portion of our WordPress website, you will see that if we visit the plugin area, we have no plugins. If we go to the theme area, we only have the default theme, which came installed with WordPress. And if I go to pages, I'm going to have these initial sample pages. I'm going to select those. I will go to bulk actions and move them to the trash. I'll click apply, and now you can see I have no pages. The pages are in the trash, so if we go to the trash area, we can select these and we can empty the trash. This is going to permanently delete those pages. I will do the same thing under posts, so I do have a default post. I'm going to go ahead and choose to move that to the trash and apply that, and then we will go into the trash and we will select this and empty the trash. I find that just having a clean version of WordPress with no placeholder content and nothing installed is the easiest way for me to begin working in WordPress. This is also the best way to work if you're going to be moving a website or copying a website from another location. I prefer to start with a blank slate. This is the easiest way for me to begin working, and then I am in charge of anything that gets installed into my website. Needless to say, It's pretty easy for you to get up and running installing WordPress if you're using HostGator. And if you do this and you're in the process of working on your website, I do recommend that you use a subdomain, as it will allow you to be able to test the website and not have it be available to the general public.